The eyes are on the Jersey Shore. Hello, everybody. I am Vin Ebenu from the Town Square Media Jersey Shore newsroom in downtown Toms River. And my guest today is Senator Michael Testa, who represents portions of Atlantic and Cape May counties as well as Cumberland, to discuss a few issues affecting not just the Jersey Shore, but the entire state of New Jersey as well on this episode. So, Senator, a few things to get into today, but I first want to just welcome you to the program, and thank you for taking out the time.
Thank you so much for having me, Ben. I'm really excited, and your network is very large throughout the state of New Jersey, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be watching and listening.
that is always a hope too. So, and hopefully we can continue to get the word out. And more so, just not just for what we're doing, but kind of the issues that we'll be talking about today as well. So, beginning of 2022, closing in on, I guess, technically the 2-year point of the pandemic and everything, and I think with it came a lot of non-COVID related issues as well, business-wise, employment-wise. It kind of exposed some other things that maybe were overlooked prior to it because of the worker shortage and everything as well. I know one of the things that you've been focused on is the New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce Development. After they kind of, how you worded it, I'll allow you to elaborate, sort of a self-congratulatory statement boasting accomplishments last year, sort of running their own victory lap when, as you said, when really there was an unemployment problem last year, and there still is a labor shortage. So where do you stand now with the amount of people on unemployment, with the current labor shortage affecting businesses, restaurants, and what needs to be done to kind of close that gap and make sure businesses have what they need and people are, taking jobs?
Well, first and foremost, the Murphy administration has to stop moving the goalposts. I mean, they've been moving the goalposts during the COVID-19 era. As I've said countless times, they've moved the goalposts so many times that we're no longer even playing the same sport. You have employers who are just wholly unsure of what they need to do to remain open, how many people they're allowed to have there, whether everybody needs to be vaccinated, whether everyone needs to be boosted. It's really left our employers in a real conundrum as to what they are supposed to do. And the Murphy administration proves time and again that they are so out of touch with the average New Jerseyan and so tone deaf to the needs of the average New Jerseyan and business owners that they have to look at their own record. They've crushed over 1/3 of all small businesses in the state of New Jersey during the COVID-19 era that will never open their doors again. We're talking about multi-generational businesses, the small mom and pop businesses that are the backbone of our economy, that are the backbone of our culture and our communities, never opening their doors again. Already being from probably the least business-friendly state in the United States of America, and this is what the Murphy administration has done. And yet you had, the commissioner from the Department of Labor being applauded for the great job that they have done. Well, to me, if I had to give the Department of Labor a grade, they would get at best a D. I mean, let's be honest about their performance during the COVID-19 era. They are still not seeing people in person. There are thousands upon thousands of people that my legislative district office has helped, between all of our wonderful staff that are in our offices, myself, Assemblyman Simonson, Assemblyman McClellan. We call our constituents back regularly. These people are extremely frustrated. The fact of the matter is that the Department of Labor has not met in person for 22 months. And, Governor Murphy had the audacity to say that some businesses were non-essential during the COVID-19 era. And you think about it, what were essential? Liquor stores, marijuana dispensaries, Home Depot, Lowe's, BJ's, Costco, Sam's Club, but you couldn't go to a church. You couldn't go to a 12-step program back then. And for some reason, the Department of Labor has not been deemed essential. They've been working remotely for 22 months. That is absolutely unacceptable. And, we are working on legislation to reopen the Department of Labor offices for in-person services. The constituents, whether they have an R next to their name, a D next to their name, all New Jerseyans need to have access to the Department of Labor and the unemployment benefits that they deserve, because they've paid into the unemployment program. So it's really despicable. Let's be honest with ourselves. Teachers are back in class. Our police and firemen are protecting us. Somehow, why are the Department of Labor employees so unique that they've been getting to sit at home while getting paid every 2 weeks like clockwork, while constituents are quite literally making difficult decisions about how much money they are going to spend at the supermarket?
How critical is it that this legislation you talked about get passed and moved on through as soon as possible? I mean, certainly before the spring or summer, I imagine, when tourism season starts to get revved up and down the Jersey Shore, Monmouth, Ocean, Atlantic, and Cape May counties, who relies heavily on what tourism brings in each and every year, to be able to have everything moving swimmingly heading in towards those months.
You think about it, we asked Governor Murphy and his administration to somehow put a pause on the rising minimum wage costs. They didn't do that. Again, you keep on hearing from this administration that they care about New Jerseyans, that they want to make New Jersey stronger and fairer, while they are making New Jersey weaker and poorer. Every single decision that they have made has made New Jerseyans weaker and poorer. And we've seen over 30% of all of our small businesses will never open their doors again. We need to have the Department of Labor situation figured out. We are now 2 years into the COVID-19 era. I'm not calling it a pandemic anymore. We are in the endemic phase. This is the COVID-19 era. It has been needlessly extended by the Murphy administration and special interest groups who want to exploit the COVID-19 era to their own ends, wholly ignoring the average New Jerseyans who are hurting during the COVID-19 era, not necessarily from COVID-19, but the butterfly effect of all of the bad decisions that have been made by the Murphy administration.
You had a bill as well that sort of ties in, I guess in a few ways, really, with legislation that you sponsored that cleared the Senate earlier this month that would provide small employers with tax benefits for COVID expenses. So explain, what does this legislation do? What can it do? How can it help people and businesses, with any COVID expenses, to try and, move past that and recoup some funding and try to stay afloat heading into what we hope is a more normal and open summer this year?
You've pretty much explained it. Absolutely. It's, New Jersey is all about our small businesses. If our small businesses close and shut their doors forever, New Jerseyans are already going to be in a worse spot than they currently find themselves in. We have to look at this, really from a 30,000-foot view as to just how bad New Jersey is performing in the COVID-19 era. Look at how high our unemployment is in the United States. I believe we're still currently 5th, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that, but I believe that we are 5th. New Jersey has one of the worst costs of living in the United States of America. We currently have the greatest outward migration of New Jerseyans or citizens in the United States of America. And I'm here to tell you that the people who are most mobile aren't the ones who are suffering economically. They are the ones who are doing well economically, that they can actually afford to move out of New Jersey, because most people aren't moving out of New Jersey if they have a job right now, if they're employed, if they're some of the lucky ones in the state of New Jersey that are employed. So this bill helps our small businesses do exactly what you said: recoup some of their costs, get on their feet, stabilize what has been completely, unfounded territory that they have found themselves in, and, helps them navigate the difficult waters that COVID-19 has just dropped them in. It's very unfortunate that the Murphy administration has not listened. And I have to tell you, the other side of the aisle in the legislature has not listened either, because we've been doing everything that we possibly can in the Republican caucus to help our small businesses, get our children back in school, and attempt to stabilize our economy. And the 1-2 punch of Biden Murphy is not helping New Jerseyans at all.
One of the, I shouldn't say one, a few things that have certainly often been debated both sides publicly at the State House, I'm sure, as well, as just sort of the handling of the pandemic since the beginning, and with every chapter of it that has happened since, or the COVID era, whether it's vaccines, boosters, getting tested, mask mandates, and even pandemic prison policies, which has changed in some ways over the course of the pandemic, with either letting certain inmates out early and putting a booster mandate on corrections officers as well, at least currently in New Jersey. So where do you currently stand on all these policies as here in 2022, with where things are currently at with COVID cases? Should there be mask mandates in schools? Should there be vaccine and booster mandates for corrections officers, or testing in hospitals and other businesses? Is it a concern as well for what some of the policies are at prisons coming from the Murphy administration?
That's a pretty long question. So I think the best place to start is the beginning, and just show how illogical the policies that are currently in place have been. And at every step, there's been a misstep. You know, you had Commissioner Hicks from the Department of Corrections, you know, who in his infinite wisdom, and I say that with my tongue firmly planted in cheek, transferred COVID positive inmates from North Jersey prisons to my region in Legislative District 1 in Cumberland County, put COVID positive inmates in with a population that did not currently have COVID positive inmates. Now, we all know, just from following basic germ theory, we don't have to be physicians, we don't need to be epidemiologists. We know that you don't put a sick population in with a healthy population, because guess what? It's going to cause a disease to spread. So that's exactly what happened in our New Jersey prison systems. Now, you asked me about testing. I think testing is absolutely the right way to go here. We know right now that the COVID-19 vaccine and booster is not preventing individuals from catching COVID-19, nor is it being effective at preventing the spread of COVID-19. The best way, in my humble estimation, and again, I'm not a scientist, but I certainly follow logic, is to test individuals. And I think we have to have a real conversation about natural immunity at this point. You know, it's funny, Bill Maher was on probably 6 or 7 weeks ago, and I readily admit I watch Bill Maher. Sometimes, you know, I like to know what the other side is doing for sure. So he's hardly a bastion of conservative thought and discussion. And he was saying how the United States is pretty much the only first world country that is not recognizing natural acquired immunity. So, you know, I think with that, if we're going to have any policies in place for our healthcare workers, for our employees of the Department of Corrections, both officers and civilian individuals, we should be doing testing, because unfortunately, this vaccine has not been at all effective of preventing those who are vaccinated and boosted from catching COVID-19 or spreading COVID-19. So I think we have to have a very real discussion about natural acquired immunity and at least recognize it. It's been recognized throughout history. You know, I don't know if you want me to get into Governor Murphy's policies about releasing inmates with COVID credits and things of that nature. You know, so I'll stop there for a moment, Ben.
Sure. No, Senator, if that's something you want to touch on to express any concerns, that's certainly the wheel is yours to express any concerns, what you would or wouldn't do as well.
Well, you know, I want to go back just for a second and
Sure.
speak about our corrections officers, our nurses, our doctors, our frontline healthcare workers who have been really applauded as heroes for 2 years. And right now we are already experiencing a massive labor shortage, especially in those areas, requiring healthcare facilities now to not only mandate vaccines, but the booster as well, is going to show that, I think, horrible, drastic results of a massive healthcare worker shortage that already exists. It's only going to exacerbate a problem that we are already facing. I don't understand the logic behind that. We have been applauding these individuals as heroes and being on the front lines for the entire COVID-19 era. And now we're going to tell them, thank you for your service, you're out because you won't comply. I think we also have to have a real hard look as to why healthcare workers may be vaccine hesitant. I'm not an expert in healthcare, but I would certainly like to ask the questions why frontline healthcare workers, such as nurses, phlebotomists, people like that, are hesitant. Why are they hesitant? And again, I think we have to have that conversation. We should have been having that conversation for months upon months. And certainly we should be recognizing acquired natural immunity as it's been recognized throughout history. Concerning Governor Murphy's release of inmates, I mean, you know, I think this is wokeism run amok in the state of New Jersey. You know, those officers that are employed by the Department of Corrections, they've been going to work every day. Do they get special COVID vacation time? Do they get hazard pay because they've been going to work each and every single day and possibly being exposed in a closed environment? No. But, you know, Governor Murphy used the cover of the pandemic to release 40%, 40, folks, 40% of the inmates from New Jersey's prisons over the last 2 years, with thousands of inmates set free without any effective oversight or specific inmate support, now released support. It's no surprise that some of our cities are struggling with record levels of violent crimes. You know, I don't see how anybody using any ounce of or modicum of logic could argue with me on that, because you shouldn't be letting individuals who were given a prison sentence, you shouldn't be letting them free due to COVID while all of your workers are still required to go there. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You know, and according to NJ.com, so again, hardly a bastion of conservative journalism, more than 5,000 prisoners were released early from incarceration during the initial COVID-related, you know, public health emergency that stretched from March of 2020 to June of 2021. Following those releases, Patterson set records for homicides in each of the last 2 years. That's a problem. We should be really looking at that, saying this is a failed policy. This isn't a good policy. And, you know, those on the radical left will say, hey, we have to, you know, stop gun violence. And they're going to probably, more than likely, as is always in the state of New Jersey, attempt to place more restrictions on the lawful gun owner. Guess what? These violent crimes, these homicides, they're not committed by members of the NRA who are law-abiding gun owners. They're not.
How much of a strain do you feel that, first, with the prisoners being released early, as well as what you just mentioned with gun policies and gun crimes and other crimes, how much of a strain do you feel that that's put on law enforcement across the board, municipal, local, county, statewide, police, with, you know, trying to enforce the law, and even with the marijuana legislation that came about over the last year as well, with what they can and can't be doing, especially in light of all these recent changes?
Well, your question, I believe, is twofold. I mean, I can tell you that this past summer, the mayors of the shore towns, you know, particularly Avalon, you know, Mayor Marty Palugi was really vocal about how children, juveniles, were congregating near the boardwalk after hours, smoking marijuana. And he said, these are his words, I believe, the police officers were essentially handcuffed in what they were able to do as far as, you know, arresting juveniles for aberrant behavior and what was illegal a year ago. So what did he do? He had to shut down the boardwalk at a certain time so that people wouldn't congregate there and really cause, you know, a large nuisance. And you know, they saw an uptick in problems in a town that typically sees almost zero criminal activity, in a town like Avalon. I have to tell you, these policies have had unintended consequences, and it's really handcuffed our law enforcement. I mean, it actually subjected our law enforcement officers to potentially opening themselves up to be charged with a third-degree crime. So you know what happened? The police officer said, hey, if these kids, and I'm calling them kids, meaning juveniles under the age of 18, Want to smoke marijuana or consume alcohol on the boardwalk? What am I to do? I'm not going to risk my salary, my pension, my job, my freedom to take a kid off the boardwalk for smoking a joint. They're not going to do that. So we saw severe ramifications from, yet again, leftist policies coming out of the Murphy administration.
I want to transition to finances, because we've hit on it in a couple different ways throughout our conversation, whether it be from unemployment or the labor shortage here. I mean, it's no secret that New Jersey has some serious debt problems, which is why companies are leaving, residents are leaving, and for maybe retiring, especially along the Jersey Shore, maybe they're moving out of state to go retire somewhere else or live somewhere else if possible, because of the taxes and everything else that just kind of keeps going up across the state as well. So as everything gets put together for 2022, what needs to be done to ensure that maybe businesses get cut a break, residents get cut a break, so that taxes and everything else that they're paying stops going incrementally up and at some point just kind of stops or starts going back down to make New Jersey more affordable to live and to work in?
You know, I've said this countless times from the floor in the Senate, from probably my first month in the Senate, that you hear terms like justice get attached to various words, whether it's educational justice, environmental justice. I've said it, you know, it needs to be attached to the term taxpayer. There needs to be taxpayer justice in the state of New Jersey. You know, these are alarming statistics that we are dealing with and really wholly being ignored. New Jerseyans are the most tax burdened citizenry in the United States of America. People are under great stress. You know, these are studies that are done that are shared on the regular news, mainstream news sites, that New Jerseyans feel the most stressed in the United States of America due to how really financially unstable New Jersey is because of the outlook. How am I going to afford a home? How am I going to afford taxes? How am I going to afford now to put gas in my car? How am I now going to afford to buy beef and chicken at the, you know, when you can't put the same food that you used to be able to put on the table? New Jerseyans are stressed, and those who paid, like I said before, who paid into the unemployment system, who are waiting for their unemployment benefits that they earned, are going weeks and weeks and weeks. I mean, the average American, and especially the average New Jerseyan, cannot go 6 to 8 weeks without a paycheck. They simply cannot do that. And that's the place that they've been put in by the Murphy administration and the commissioner from the Department of Labor, not even updating their COBOL-based system. I mean, there are such a sundry of issues. You know, the term affordability is thrown around in Trenton under the Gold Dome an awful lot. Well, guess what? New Jersey simply isn't affordable. You know, when you have a home that costs this much money, you know, costs for homes have gone up $150,000 on average, is my understanding. That's an alarming statistic. Good for realtors, good for sellers who are moving out of state, bad for buyers who are staying in state. It's just untenable. And then you look at the debt. I released something yesterday. There's an additional $26 billion in long-term debt. That's an additional $3,000 for every man, woman, and child in the state of New Jersey that we're on the hook for. This is simply not a sustainable road that we are on. This is not a sustainable path. And when you look at the business climate in the state of New Jersey, businesses are not willing to move here. Why would they want to move to the state of New Jersey when they can go to other places? You know, there is a pathway out, but we need to have really long and hard talks. And like I said in 2020, when I had to sue the governor over the budget, you know, I told you so, because he made it non-callable debt, and our treasurer gave us drastically inaccurate revenue prognostications. We asked them not to make the debt non-callable. They did. And I remember I got a call from a reporter and they said, Senator Testa, you were right. What's your remedy? I said, my only remedy is I told you so. So we need to really sit down with our governor, who is ruled by executive order since March of 2020. He needs to include the legislature. We need to have serious talks about tightening our belt. not expanding our budget. We have to tighten the belt, and we're probably going to have to do it for a couple of years. People don't like to hear that, but we certainly can't go and borrow billions of dollars and put it on the backs of New Jerseyans for 30 years to come. Because guess what? Eventually, the real stakeholders in the state of New Jersey who have money are going to move out of the state. And that's a shame.
To close out here, what are some things you think need to be done or would like to see done this year in particular for your constituents in LD1 across Atlantic and Cape May and Cumberland, as well as really across the rest of the Jersey Shore and Monmouth and Ocean and the rest of New Jersey, with either summer tourism, which I know is certainly a big thing from top to bottom across the shore, and really just kind of anything that could help New Jersey residents and businesses have a successful and healthy 2022?
So again, I'll have to go back to the summer of 2020, July of 2020, when the state was facing really the most onerous restrictions that were placed on every town in the state of New Jersey. Legislative District 1 accounted for less than 2% of all COVID-19 positive cases in the state. And we faced the same exact restrictions as towns like Newark, Patterson, towns that were facing, the real reality of the early stages of the COVID-19 era at the height of the COVID-19 era. That made absolutely no sense. Tourism is the backbone of Legislative District 1's economy and Legislative District 2. Legislative District 2, my neighbor, Senator Vince Palestina, he has Atlantic City. So they're number one in tourism tax dollars generated. Cape May County is number two. Cape May County sends $550 million to Trenton each and every year, with only $1 million returning. That's unacceptable. We need to have more of those tourism tax dollars returned to Cape May. The city of Wildwood is where I had my first job on the Wildwood Beach Patrol as a lifeguard, starting at 14 years old. That boardwalk has been in need of serious repair probably since then. You're talking 30 years. It's estimated by Mayor Pete Byron, who sits again across the side of the aisle from me, that their boardwalk is in need of $80 million of repair. Well, guess what? If Cape May County were able to get back a significant portion, let's say 10% per year of that $550 million per year, you could start seeing a lot of the repairs that are going to be necessary. Because guess what? Without the boardwalk in Wildwood, you lose a major economic engine in South Jersey. And these aren't just New Jerseyans who are vacationing in Cape May County. You have a lot of French-speaking Canadians, New Yorkers, Connecticut, Pennsylvanians who visit Cape May County for the summer months because of our beautiful beaches and our boardwalks and so much great family fun activities that are there. Like in Ocean City, that calls itself America's Resort, where Assemblyman McClellan is from. I mean, we have such a great area, but we need our tax dollars to return to our area to actually fund the necessary infrastructure. So I'd like to see a lot of that infrastructure money that is being sat on by the Murphy administration actually put it where it's supposed to go. Allow our tourism tax dollars to come to Cape May County and invest in infrastructure in South Jersey. And South Jersey is often forgotten under the Gold Dome in Trenton.
And there's certainly a lot to offer, certainly in the Atlantic Cape May County areas, like you mentioned with Wildwood. I think when my parents, we live in Toms River, Ocean County, and when my parents moved down from North Jersey before I was born in 92, it's ever since I was a kid, summer vacations in Wildwood, a few days here, go enjoy the beaches and the boardwalks and different parts of Cape May County as well. There's a lot of great things down there. And for everybody out there watching, certainly love going around Ocean and Monmouth County as well and enjoying a lot of the rides and restaurants and everything up here as well. But I mean, sometimes just to take a trip down to Wildwood and parts of Atlantic City and everything else, there's just so much going on down there in the summer months, year round as well, but a lot of great things to offer to people who live in different parts of New Jersey. And to your point as well, to people who live outside of New Jersey who want to come to the Jersey Shore, to Wildwood and Cape May and everything, to spend a few days here and enjoy what the shore has to offer.
Absolutely. I mean, you think about Cape May County, its zoo is rated in the top 5 in the United States of America. I mean, I take my children there. It's one of their favorite places to go. There's so much to experience in what we call the real South Jersey, by the way. And I know you're from Tom's Rivers. A lot of people say that's South Jersey. There's a little bit of a dispute. It's a friendly dispute, but it's a dispute nonetheless as to whether that is in fact South Jersey. But what we call the real South Jersey, between myself, Assemblyman McClellan, and Assemblyman Simonson, and Senator Palestina, Assemblyman Guardian, and Assemblywoman Swift, we have, we make jokes about the first and the second, but we always say that we represent the real South Jersey with our shore towns. And, they seem to be underrepresented in Trenton. And by that, I mean, they love accepting our tax dollars, but they don't want to hear our voice, and they certainly don't want to give us our tax dollars back for any reinvestment in infrastructure. And it's just wrong. I mean, we feel like we've gotten the short end of the stick. And Assemblyman Simonson came up with a statement during our 2019 campaign, which I thought was great. He said, just because we are at the bottom of the state doesn't mean we should be treated like we are at the bottom of the barrel. And I couldn't agree with him more. I mean, so I have to give him credit for that quote, because I thought it was just a great quote at the time, and it still applies. We just need that reinvestment back here so we can actually have young people who are employed by those small businesses, so that those small businesses will survive. I mean, you think of those places on the boardwalk, they only have a very short window of time to earn their money for the year. And if there's any more restrictions placed on them for another summer, there's going to be a lot more empty real estate on those boardwalks. And I don't think that our economy can survive that.
Senator Testa, I appreciate you taking out some time today to discuss a lot of issues, from COVID to the economic climate to Atlantic and Cape May tourism and a lot of other things as well. I mean, certainly tackling the issues, discussing them, trying to offer up, provide solutions to some of the ongoing issues that are hurting New Jersey residents and businesses, and trying to build up and boost up some of the great things that the shore has to offer. And certainly down where you are in LD1 in Atlantic and Cape May counties. So I appreciate you taking out the time to dive into a lot of these issues and offer up some hope and solutions.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
That is State Senator Michael Testa in Legislative District Number 1 down in South Jersey, representing parts of Atlantic, Cape May, and Cumberland counties. And I thank him for joining us today. Once again, for State Senator Michael Testa, I am Vin Avenue, and thank you for watching another episode of Eyes on the Jersey Shore.